You want to set up your data for the first day of school. I'm Dr. Dave Maddock. Welcome back to another year in Osceola County. And today I want to show you how you can use eduClimber to gather all the data for your students, break it apart into pieces, and use that to build instructional groups for your students so that they can have the best learning outcomes, particularly within that lens of multi-tiered systems of support. So we're going to start off right at the top. How do you get into eduClimber? Just in case you haven't done this before, if you're a classroom teacher, you can click School City. Once School City opens up, right at the top, you're going to click that waffle icon to bring up your tray. And within the tray, you have your eduClimber button. Clicking that will take you right into eduClimber, but I'm going to jump into my version right here with student information protected so that I'm not accidentally showing any students. Unfortunately, that means we're not going to see their happy little faces when we look at them, but you will when you look at your students. So right here, we are in eduClimber as a platform. You, as a classroom teacher, have a lot of great access to data for your students from multiple years, but since today we want to talk about looking at instructional grouping, we're going to do that through Students 3D right over here. If you click Students 3D and then you click Search, you will get all of your students. I just clicked search a minute ago, so that's why they're already loaded for me. And from here, we can start breaking this data down in various ways. I would encourage you, pause this video, take a minute, get in, open this up to this screen so that you can follow along with me with your students. So what are we going to do from here? We're looking at all of our students. We can see our basic groupings. So for example, how many male versus female students do I have? I've got 74 female students, 63 male students. You can probably guess I'm a middle or high school teacher. This is a lot of students, and if I'm talking groupings, I myself probably want to know who is in which class period. So how do I do that? Well, it's right over here on the left. We click this courses button right here, and then you will see I'm using Sherry Retka's classroom so that I can get a teacher's data, and then I can select one of my courses. I'm just going to pick the first one, and it will automatically tell me which period that is. When I hit apply, I'm now looking at this course. So in my research 1 period, I've got 24 students. I can check what grade they're all in. They're all in 6th grade. And now when I look at that grouping, this class has 16 females and 8 male students. Other groupings I can automatically select: ethnicity to see my student breakdown, disability. I can see I have one student with ASD, one student language impaired, and one student with multiple values. And if I wanted to know more information about a student, I could click on them and then hit View Student Profile. What this is going to show me is all the information that we have. And for the specific exceptionalities, that's going to be under the Student Data button, Disabilities, and I can see the student works with autism spectrum disorder and with a language impairment. I want to go back to Students 3D, so if I click that, it will keep exactly where I was. This little window I can press the X on, and now I'm right back to where I was looking at that information. And also within this grouping, under English Language Learners, the English Language Proficiency Level button will show me how many students I have. LY, I've got 5 students, 1 student in their follow-up, 7 students in their 3 to 4 year follow-up, 10 students who are not or never were ELL, and 1 student still in testing. So this is great and an easy tool for figuring out who are your students, what are the demographic values look like. But what I want to do is follow that Kagan cooperative grouping structure. I'm planning to build my class around sets of 4. You might be doing different types of grouping, such as for a high behavioral needs class, you might be doing dyads, having 2 students facing each other. But for this instructional purpose, I'm going to be doing heterogeneous grouping. So the way that Spencer Kagan defined that was 1 student who's high performing, 1 student who's low performing, and then 2 students in between. And we put that high and low performing students dichotomously across from each other. We put the medium performing students facing each other as well, and then we can do shoulder partners that are a homogeneous ability, and we can do face partners that are a heterogeneous ability anytime we need, and we have rich group discussions in that. You don't need to do this all the time, but it's one way of organizing a classroom around student need. So to get there, I need to know, well, who are my high performing, my low performing, and my students in the middle. I'm going to do that right now through this assessment filter. So let's go back to looking at all my students and this assessment filter. Now, I am a middle school teacher, so my students probably took the best assessment, progress monitoring 3 in the spring. If I'm a third grade teacher or below, they would have taken the STAR progress monitoring. Both of those are in here under Fast Best and down here under STAR assessment. I'm going to right now show you the Fast Best assessment. I'm in a research class, so I want to look at this ELA test, but if I was in math, I could pull the math test. I want the data from Progress Monitoring 3, but I could pull the other tests if I wanted to. And now there are 2 steps here that get a little bit tricky, so be sure to pause and rewind if you need it again. For target set, I'm looking at their achievement level. I don't happen to know the scale scores off the top of my head for every single scale score that a kid could receive, so I'm just going to set it to achievement level, and then I'm going to say I want the students who got a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 on this test. And of course, it's going to default to 23, 24. Our kids haven't taken Progress Monitoring 3 yet, so I need to tell it, by the way, pull this data from 22, 23. Now, when I apply this, here I can see 21 of my 24 kids took the test last spring. That means I have 3 kids who came in without test scores, and they scored a level 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. That's not so useful to me, so what do I do now? Well, what I do is I come over here on the left, and I click this new Fast Best ELA button, and that now breaks out my students. Here's my level 2 students, my level 4, level 3, and level 1. Now, breaking up my level 2s and 3s is probably going to be difficult and needed because I only have 1 student in this course who's performing low and a handful who are performing high for my heterogeneous grouping. So I'm probably going to have to figure out which of my level 2s are performing low. There are a couple things that I could do for that. The first thing is going to be coming over to this assessments and adding a gradebook grade. So let's say I know my students last year were in language arts grade 5. So I could pull what was their 4th quarter grade. And we noticed earlier when we pulled the achievement levels that it just clumped them all together. We don't want to do that again. So let's just say I only want to pull the kids who are below the benchmark. So below a C in quarter 4 last year. And let's see what that gets me. So I did come up with 1 student, and right here I can tell that they got a level 2 and they were below benchmark. So this is one of my students I'm going to add into my low group. So let's talk about adding students into my grouping. I'm going to highlight this student, which will pop up this window right here. And from here, I can check this box and hit apply a tag. Tags are a great way of allowing me to group students the way that I want to, in a way that I can pull all that information at once anywhere across the eduClimber platform. So what I'm going to do is say that this is a, let's call this the, I don't want to use that term, let's call this my pink group. As a classroom teacher posting this, sorry, I'm going to have to click new tag, call this my pink group. I'm going to be the only one who can see this unless I specifically choose to share it with someone else, which I will show you in another video. These students need to improve in ELA to achieve level 3 is what I'm going to say in this group. Please remember that anything that you put into eduClimber falls under the Freedom of Information Act. It can be requested by parents, so guard your language when you're doing that. I've now got my pink group right here, and I'm going to add this student. Any of these filters that I've added I can take off, so I'm going to take off my gradebook grade, and I'm going to add this student as well to my pink group. Okay, these level 4s I know are going to be my highs in my heterogeneous grouping. So right here I'm going to apply a tag. This one I'm going to make my blue group. Students who showed high achievement on previous FAST. Give it a nice blue color here. And now I can apply those students. The last thing I have to do is figure out what I'm doing with my students in the middle. So for these students, I'm going to apply a tag. This is going to be my yellow group. Add these students to my yellow group. Now, I want to put these level 2 students in my yellow group, but if you remember, one of them is already in my pink group. So what can I do about that? I'm going to come over here and click that tag button, which brings up this window. I'm going to add my pink group, and you'll see here that it says restrict results. Now, if I were to leave restrict results on, what it's going to do is filter my whole class down to kids with just that pink group tag. But in this case, I don't want that, so I'm going to turn restrict results off and apply. Now you'll see it's the same information that we've been seeing, but when I look through here, you'll notice one of my students has the pink group tag right here, so I know not to pull them into my group. So I can highlight this. Here's my student in the pink group. I can check everyone but my pink group student and apply tag. And now I'm going to put these students in my yellow group. Okay, now anytime I want to come in and look at that data, I can go to my tag. Let's take all of these off, and I can just filter to my yellow group students. And here they are. And all those groupings I could do earlier, I can still check. What's the language learner status of my students in my yellow group? What's my gender breakdown? I have one more female than males in my yellow group. Do any of them have a disability? No, they do not from that group that I selected. These are all of the students that I tagged, and I can share that tag with any other teacher if they have access to the same students. Now, when I'm going to build my classes, my class groups, what I can do is add my other tags. I'm not going to restrict my results. And lastly, let me add my pink group. And now I can quickly see who's in my yellow group, my blue group, and my pink group. Let me, just for simplicity purposes, set that back to the one class that I was working out of. I can see who's in pink, blue, and yellow. Now, it's not always the easiest to be looking at the bubbles of students, so what I can do here is go up to this table right here, and now I can see the names of the students and their demographic information in table form for each of those groups. I can also turn this off and see right here, blues, yellows, pinks, and click to filter. Here's my yellows, my blues, and my pinks. And from that way, I can easily start going into focus and building my student tables, my seating charts out of that, trying to group those students around that heterogeneous grouping. Remember, if you're doing this pink, yellow, blue, you would need twice as many students in your yellow group as you would in your blue and your pink groups. So I probably should do a little bit further analysis to pull about 2 students out of yellow and put them into pink for my heterogeneous grouping to work. But this would easily allow me to build 6 groups, 6 clusters of 4 within my class heterogeneous grouping to make for easy, flexible pairing whenever I needed. So that's one quick way that you can dig through all the data that you have to set up grouping for your classroom. Please check out all the other So You Want To videos for more information on how you can use eduClimber to make data analysis in your classroom just a little bit easier. Thank you.